Welcome to the Pie Guy Podcast with your host, Matt Walker.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Pie Guy Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Walker. Exciting day today. We have Chris Dessi, a guy I first met in kindergarten, Lakeview Elementary School. Chris is a motivational speaker, serial tech entrepreneur, three-time best-selling author. He does TED Talks. He's been on CNBC, CNN, Fox News. I had a great time. We did this social. He did this Westchester internet marketing convention, or what was that?
The Westchester Digital Summit. I'm actually going to do another one. I'm going to do, it might not be the same name, but I'm back doing events also. So
I was just actually talking to Jen Rue the other day, and we were referencing, we couldn't believe it was like 10 years ago.
It's crazy.
So I've known Chris a long time. I've seen his career go, and ours have a lot of similarities. So I thought it'd be great to have him on here. I know he's doing a lot with AI and stuff like that. I thought it'd be a great person to reach out to. So Chris, welcome. Great to see you. And if you could give everyone sort of just a catch up on what you're doing and where you're at. I know you have a lot going on.
Sure. I'm just a nice Italian kid from Mayapack. What am I doing now? I am the founder and CEO of Torque AI, which is a full service marketing AI powered agency. And I am very focused on that right now and building out my personal brand in order to generate conversation around what I'm focused on at Torque. And that's very specifically AI for small business owners. And when I say small, I mean, between like 1 million and 20 million. I've been selling to enterprise level businesses for my entire career. And frankly, I'm over it. I want to help smaller businesses that have been coming to me for a lot of my career. And I've always poo-pooed it and kind of pushed that away. But I'm finding real fulfillment in meeting with entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, individuals that are kind of responsible for marketing and selling on their own, because I believe like right now what we're doing, April 24th, 2025, it's a renaissance for small business owners, where they finally have the ability with one, maybe two people to do really incredible creative things in advertising, marketing, PR, communications. And I'm really enjoying teaching them how to do it. I do free webinars. I have a free AI 101 course at Torque Academy. So I've launched Torque Academy for AI. I've launched Dessie Academy for motivational stuff, because I wrote a book called There Is No Tomorrow about how executives can reinvent themselves over the age of 40. And those two tracks of like AI and helping people in our ecosystem, like our age group, really speak to like the core of who I am and my passion and the things that I really love. So I'm at a very exciting sort of juncture in my career. So,
Well, you were telling me about a year ago, you and I had this great conversation. It was very helpful. And that's actually one of the other reasons why I wanted you on here is it was just such a great conversation. And you had brought up AI, and I've actually been using AI a decent amount since that in the last year. And I'm sure I don't use it anywhere near your level, but you had told me that, you're able to put books in there and they're able to kind of learn how you speak and your conversational tone and things like that. I used it to start when we start talking. I used it to just do, descriptions of whether it was logos or different projects I worked on. But I've been using it more and more and more. Actually, I was just at ESPN for a year, and somebody was upset because I said, well, yeah, I just ran it through ChatGPT. And they're like, oh, like they were so offended. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Why wouldn't I use like a Madison Avenue marketing firm to write up my idea? That it's not making up the idea. I'm writing it in, and then it's making me sound really freaking smart. Why wouldn't I do that? It was kind of interesting to me that there was even pushback on that. Like, oh, what a rube. I was like, oh my gosh.
I mean, I've been part of these sort of revolutions, as have you, right? So late 90s .com boom. I got my master's degree in direct marketing. I graduated college in 97, same. 99, got my master's degree in direct marketing. And then from 2000, .com. Oh, everything can't be .com, everything can't be online. This is ridiculous. People won't read books on a piece of technology. They want to feel the book. That I was selling at a design agency. People never go on a website. They want the catalog. They want to thumb through a catalog, and they want it. And then I went into social media, and big businesses aren't going to be on Facebook. They don't want to be big businesses don't want to be on Pinterest. That's ridiculous. And now all of a sudden AI, oh, you don't want to run everything through ChatGPT. That's ridiculous. So I'm used to it. But I do think right now more than ever, it's a scary, scary time for the people that get upset about the ChatGPT. And the reason what'll happen, sort of like my spidey sense, right? People that gave me the most pushback when I was selling them on social media are out of business now. And I'm not joking. And that's part of the reason why I did the Westchester Digital Summit, is because I kind of got sick of trying to convince people about social media. And I was like, look, it's not my job to convince you. I'm here. You want to use my agency, we'll help you. But I'm going to do the event so that you can educate yourself and all boats can rise. And that's great. That's why, I bought the URL aisummit.nyc. And I want to do that, but I'm also going to I own the URL smallbusinesssummit.ai. So I want to be able to get people in the room. So it's not just guys like you and I, one-on-one, one-off, hey, you should be using ChatGPT. It's, I'm doing a webinar in a couple of weeks for a multi-chamber event for chambers of commerce in Westchester County. And the biggest thing that I'm showing them is the baby steps. Okay, you're scared of ChatGPT. You don't know how to use it. I'm going to show you how to use it for your business. And I'm going to walk them through how to create their own GPT. And then once they create their own GPT, I'm going to tell them to feed every piece of information that they've ever had about their business, marketing documents, brand documents, logos that you've designed for them, right? Strategy that you've presented to them in your career about, this is our brand guidelines. These are our colors. These are our fonts. This is everything that we use, everything into the GPT so that they can scale what's between their ears. And the reason why I mentioned that I'm scared right now is the delta between brick and mortar and .com was like that. Okay. And then the brick and mortars, some of them caught up, some of them were fine. They didn't need to have a website. And then social media, the delta was like that, right? Some of them got involved in social media. Some of them didn't have to. I was a Vistage speaker where I would go around the country talking to CEOs, 20 to 30 CEOs at a time. And I would audit their businesses before I'd get there. And that would be part of my presentation. I'd be like, hey, Matt, you need to do these 3 things in social media. It'll change the game for you. And that's wonderful. But every once in a while, I'd meet a guy that was a manufacturer of a widget, multimillionaire in Milwaukee, a real guy, Ivy League educated family, had this manufacturing company. They manufactured 1 or 2 parts for John Deere, right? But they were millionaires. They didn't need a Facebook page, right? So oh, okay. So that delta wasn't that bad. AI, what we're experiencing right now, it is going to flip. It's in the midst of flipping the world on its head. And what I mean by that is all of the jobs that you and I were told when we were coming up were the stable, consistent, you're always going to be successful jobs. They're going to change, right? My brother's a lawyer and he's a partner at his law firm. They're going to be able to stop hiring associates at a certain point because there's finders, minders, and grinders. They're not going to need the grinders. They're going to need fewer minders, right? So when that happens and you don't have an influx of talent that's coming in because you can flip on AI and then you can scale what you're doing for your business, A, terrifying for people that aren't prepared for it. B, massive opportunity, the biggest opportunity. And that delta that I was talking about, it's .com, social, I can't even fit on the screen with AI because it's going to kill industries, literally. It's going to, how many times can, one of the smartest kids I know was a friend of my college roommate. And this kid went to William and Mary. And I just mean just intelligent, a lot going on behind the eyes, great guy. And he got the biggest job offer coming out of William and Mary, big money at one of the the big consulting firms. Those big firms are going to be in trouble, like real trouble. And what I mean is those big firms that were charging 75 grand a month to have 10 consultants come in and put together PowerPoint presentations, it's only going to be a couple of more months. And I literally mean that, months, not years, months, before the enterprise client figures out that they can create what those consultants created in 20 minutes if they use AI properly. And they're not going to pay them 75K anymore, because it's always going to be about the bottom line. So if you're a consultant, if you're a lawyer, if you're guys like you and I, right, that have been in tech for a bunch of years, that understand design, that understand marketing, that understand strategy and communications, it's hugely exciting, but can be also very scary. So I think the pushback on the ChatGPT, it's kind of like when you insult somebody, they only get really upset if there's like a little bit of truth there. So
Yeah.
I'd imagine that person that got annoyed that you used ChatGPT is probably scared of ChatGPT.
Well, it is funny you said that, because there were other people in that room that we were actually meeting with these AI people. I guess there was a contract or something, and there was room to use AI. And my boss, Sean, he was smart about it. We were talking about cutting down on production considerably on things like headshots and stuff at ESPN. And he was taking advantage of it. And I always really respected this guy, Sean, because he always is looking to, figure out processes and things to make things work. And when we were going through what you could do with the AI to cut down on steps, or even I was making this really complex system, and the amount of things we could cut out and just automate through AI was amazing. I could literally say, give me the Colorado Avalanche, uniform, and change this color, change that color, make sure it's this hex color, or all the hex colors correct. Like, that doesn't sound like a big deal, but that's hundreds and hundreds of hours of work to go through every logo in the league. I spent the last year like making a library and doing all this stuff, and then you find out, oh, we have to cut all these a different way, or oh, we have to go through, and then it can just automate, which is amazing. It is scary, I will say, but it's, as I kind of tell everyone, you know what? I'm going to take advantage of it until it murders us all. Why not?
Well, I mean, look, it's like anything else. I think the doomsday scenarios with AI are real conversations that we need to be aware of. But right now, if you're a business owner and you're a solopreneur, you can do some real damage, man. Like, if you really harness it properly, and on my YouTube channel, I've been making these videos. I'm like, every tool that I use, I kind of break down, and then I try to teach it for free so that people can learn about these tools, because I get a kick out of watching how people use it. But it's also like, part of my background. In 2007, 8, I heard Gary Vaynerchuk speak. So for your viewers that haven't heard about Gary Vaynerchuk, Google him. He's basically like the original influencer, right? And Gary was unknown. I saw him speak at a conference. I was like, wow, this is really interesting. And everything that he was preaching and that he was doing, I thought was really incredible. But then you get to the point where there was only those few businesses that were actually implementing what he was talking about. And by virtue of it now surrounding us from top to bottom and being something that is encountering us every day in our lives, I think it's no longer an option, right? Like, it's just something that happens, and you either you can react to it, or you're SOL, and you're going to have to figure it out after you've already been let go and you're already trying to figure out how to make a living. And then that's when it becomes really scary. But it's for me, it's like, I view it as a much more exciting opportunity for people that didn't interact with technology in the past, that can now interact with technology and see some of the joyful things that they can use. I mean, you're a designer, but I created my logo and my brand identity using Looka in about 5 minutes, right? Like, I just described what I wanted to do. I said, this is my color palette, spit it out. And I was like, oh, okay, that's really interesting. Now I can just use that.
What does it produce? So what does it produce in that way? Does it produce vector files? I always wondered that.
It produces everything that you would need. You
Wow.
can pay for a little bit more. I mean, it's very impactful. Now, not perfect, right? You still need human beings to manage it. You still need, you know, we all can tell when ChatGPT has written something. Sometimes you can tell when it's designed something too, right? Like you see these images and you're like, it's AI. That's going to end soon, like a year from now. I bet we'll look at it and be like, we can't tell whether it was human made. I don't think it's going to crush humans' creativity, but I think the people that don't understand how to use it are going to be in real trouble. Real trouble.
Yeah, I always wonder with that because the one thing I have heard, and I saw a comment. Someone made a comment that like they need to get rid of certain rules so AI can be stronger when it comes to like property and like whether it's music or logos or whatever. And I'm kind of like, well, that intellectual property is that's the thing it's kind of doing. It's repurposing that. So until they get that straightened out, I would be worried making a logo without knowing if it's just basically taken from somewhere else. Like, how do you know? Can a lawyer run a thing on? Like, how do you know if it's trademarkable or anything like that?
Yeah, that's your responsibility. It's funny because I have a buddy who's an attorney, and he was talking about we were talking about like being able to like write books with AI, and he's like, "That's fine. I'm not worried about that. What I'm really worried about is what about the authors who are the AI is crawling their books and extracting
Yeah,
ideas from their books and reusing it." He's like, "That's the real concern because it's like music piracy, right? Like it's taking their IP without buying it because it's in the
yeah.
public domain and it can scan it and then reuse it." He's like, that's going to be an interesting thing. We're in very interesting times.
Well, that's the one thing that gives me hope as a designer that there is that sort of wall of they've got to figure that part out. So I have some time, hopefully, but
But
who knows?
there's also always going to be people that are going to seek out like an artisanal, bespoke experience, right? Like there are going to be people that want to spend 2 weeks with you and really talk through their logo, and they're going to be insulted by Looka. I get that and I understand that. And those people aren't going to go away. Those people are still going to want to interact with you and sit with you and talk about like pick your brain and discuss strategy. Okay, how did you do this at ESPN? How did you, we saw that team that you did that logo for. How did you come about thinking about that? Those things are still there. So it's not, purely the sky is falling, but, you know,
Well, there is. I mean, there is that low hanging fruit that even if someone comes to me, they go, well, And by the way, I don't just do logos, but this we'll use it for the example. But someone will come to you and say, how much does a logo cost? And it's like, well, it depends. It's like saying how much does a house cost? How many rooms? How many? Where is it? This, that, and the other thing. But that low hanging fruit of if you're just doing a word mark or something like that, if you came to me for just a simple word mark, well, yeah, that's a heck of a lot easier than if I'm, building a character or drawing up, something really intricate. Or like you said, maybe you want a lot more. Maybe you need, some people need like 10 or 15 versions and some people just need one or two. And I feel like certainly for the one or two people, like AI is exactly what they need. They just want to look professional and they just want something that,
yeah.
like it might not be their main thing.
Well, that's the biggest opportunity that I see, right? So, for example, if you are, uh, if you're making 50K a year and you want to make 100K a year, that's the opportunity, right? If you can sit down and say, okay, like the ability for somebody to create their own AI agency by white labeling technology, create a logo, buy a URL, go on WordPress, design the website, go to a white label producer of AI agency type services, put their logo and their name on it, reach out to local businesses and say, hey, I'm going to give you a reputation report that's going to scan all of the different businesses and it's going to tell you how you can rank higher. And then they can set it and forget it because there's a team of people at the company that they've just white labeled from. That's a real side hustle. That's exciting because it's scalable. It doesn't take that much sweat equity, right? So it's not hacking your life. Like it's not taking away, like it's a true side hustle. You can do that for an hour a day after you come home, say hi to the wife and kids, sit down, watch your show on Netflix, and then you could check your emails and do whatever. That's a real side hustle. So you can scale because it's technology. You have the white label support. you've done a couple of things so you could figure that stuff out, but then you're also helping your community by, working with small businesses. I think that type of stuff, and people that have the entrepreneurial thing inside of them that perhaps they previously didn't know, I think that becomes really interesting. And that's also something that I'm finding out through the Dessie Academy and Torque Academy, is what I realized, and this, you're going to appreciate this, Matt. All these different businesses and online tutorials or whatever, they talk about taking a startup from here to here. And to me, that doesn't interest me, right? Like, that's like, okay, great. You hire a marketing firm or an agency and they can help you grow. What really interests me is the guy or gal that I sit next to at a wedding, or I work out with at CrossFit, or I do yoga with on the weekends, or I play in a band with, tonight I have my band rehearsal, and they say, I know I have it in me, but I'm not sure what I would do. Like that, that journey from, like, try to see if I can get the end of the screen, from there to there, that I think is a massive opportunity as well, because those people that knew in their gut that they could do something, they're going to find things that they can absolutely do based on their interests, whether that be design or marketing or communications or sales or whatever. And it's going to happen faster, where they can generate real income to supplement their current income. And that's like the feedback that I'm getting from, one-on-one coaching that I do and the academy. Man, that's really exciting. I saw a woman that was just very active in her church, and she created a GPT for her church so that they could log in and get daily prayers based on the information that they gave it. And it's beautiful, right? Like, they could say, like,
Wow.
like, my auntie is sick and her name is Sue. And then it hit it into the GPT, and it would have like a mantra for that person whose auntie was sick and a prayer. I'm like, and all of a sudden this woman knew that she wanted to do something like that. She didn't know how to create it. She went through this group and this program, but I forget the guy's. I wish I remember the guy's name, where he does this. He has these AI workshops, but I'm excited by that. And that's what I'm trying to do with, like, my webinars and all that jazz.
So there were two things I wanted to talk of. One, I know exactly what you're talking about. One of my favorite things is, like you said, you get that person, he's just an everyday, guy or gal, and they don't know where to begin, and you give them these tools, and then you sit back and you watch it. Like, that's one of my favorite things. And I've done that so much over the years for things like I'm a terrible businessman. I never charge anyone for anything, but it is so nice to see these people
You should
take
change
that information. Yeah, I know. But the other thing you were saying is yesterday, and it took me, actually it was probably more than a day. It took me all day long. I was going through my resume because, it's hard when you're putting your resume out there. It doesn't get seen. And I was sitting there and I was, oh, this isn't fair, woe is me. But then finally there was just something that went off in my head. And I said, you know what, I'm going to finally get one of these AI, things that look at your resume and grade it. So you get this grading, and you want to get an 80% rating so that it can, pass through and get seen and all that. Because if you don't have that, it won't be seen. So you can't really write a resume without AI right now, I don't think, anyway.
Well, can I stop you? And I'm going to, like, I really, really hope that people that watch this podcast are going to be, like, in this vein of thought. So I'm going to call BS on saying that it's hard. It's not hard. It's easier than ever. And people that go, oh my God, it's overwhelming, my resume won't get seen. So then stop working on your resume. Okay. Like, create something else. And this is something that this story, Matt. Like, I learned this in 2004. I was a director of sales. I wanted to be a vice president of sales. My wife was pregnant with our first baby. I lived in the city in a studio. I wanted to move to Chappaqua, and I knew the mortgages and the taxes were colossal. So I needed to be in a different bracket, right? Like, I needed to get out of the director of sales thing. I go to headhunters. I remember I spent $1,000. So this is why I know that it's wrong. I spent $1,000 for a copywriter to rewrite my resume. And I sent that resume around. And guess what? I still got sent to be director of sales in different jobs. And I was like, no, you don't seem to understand. I want to be a vice president of sales. They're like, whoa, it's going to be $10,000 more a year, $20,000 more a year, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, nobody seems to get what I'm saying. Like, and I made the resume was like, boom, I've been doing this for 5 years. I'm great at selling. I'm going to be a vice president of sales. Nobody listened to me. I started a blog, natively named ChristopherDessi.com, and I wrote one article, right? So it was about the fatal flaw of pay for performance, right? Because I was in affiliate marketing, like cost per acquisition, affiliates on one side, advertiser on the other. And it opened itself up for fraudulent activity. The publisher would kind of fudge things in order to get paid. Oh, this is a lead. Oh, no, it's not. The person's dead. This is a lead. No, it's not. The person was on a do not call list and we can't call them. And it was that idea for affiliate marketing. And there was a Harvard Business Review article that was talking about the fatal flaw of pay for performance for CEOs who were cooking the books because they were getting incented by their stock prices if they went up. So I took that, I wrote one article, and it's in the first chapter of my book, Remarkable You, about building a personal brand. What happened from that one article, I call it the $260,000 blog post. 200 base salary, $60,000 signing bonus, because the hiring manager for a vice president of sales role at a multinational affiliate network gave me the offer on the spot over breakfast after talking about, he didn't want to look at my resume. He wanted to talk about the blog post. So that's why I call BS on it, because people that say, oh, it's hard. The old way is hard. Stop doing it the old way. So identify the business that you want to work at or the thing that you want to do, create a website, and start publishing from the website. Oh, I'm not a good writer. Cool. Post a video every day about what you would do for that brand specifically. And that became my MO. Like my first job in social media, like when I saw Gary speak in 2007, I went to Buddy Media to try to get a job. And they were like, you don't have social media experience. I could have said, wow, this is hard. Boy, I got to spend a lot of money redoing my resume. No, I went and I bought the URL facebookshouldhireme.com because I was like, okay, if I'm going to do social media, I'm going to do it right. I want to go work at Facebook. And I did that because I saw this girl, Jamie Varon. She created twittershouldhireme.com. And I was like, oh my God, I was in a hotel in San Francisco learning about social media. I Googled facebookshouldhireme.com. I bought it that afternoon. And then I started blogging from that. Within 2 weeks, it was covered by Fortune magazine as creative ways to gain employment. I took that magazine, stuck it under my arm, went back into Buddy Media, and I was like, I understand media. I know how to manipulate media. Hire me. Now, they didn't hire me for as much money as I wanted, but I was in the door in an industry that I was excited about, that I knew it had potential. I knew that I could skate to where the puck was going. I knew everything was moving towards social media. So that's why I call BS, right? So if you say, oh gosh, my resume is not getting looked at, so what? So what? Figure out whatever company it is that you want to work for, go by the URL espnshouldhireme.com and start posting content there. Then you reach out to a hiring manager with that link, and the resume is a supplemental piece of it, and be like, I want to work there so badly. These are the things that I'm going to do for you. And then I brought that even further with Buddy Media, where when I met with Mike Lazaro with the Fortune magazine under my arm, I had created a deck that had an entire year's worth of this is what I'm going to do for you. And I did the same thing. My last gig at Diamond Standard, where I was chief revenue officer for a little over 3 years at a fintech in New York City. I didn't just go in the interview. I showed up with a 30-slide deck articulating everything that I was going to build for this guy. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do for you. So I flipped the script on every interview, every interaction, and look, that's scary, but it works because people want to see something different. You talked about, oh, think out of the box. So change the design of your resume. No, because everybody's doing the same thing. But now you have tools to do 50 different unique things. Why wouldn't you do that in order to push yourself to the front of the line? So I call BS on that. There's a lot of different things that you could do.
Well, what I did do though, from an AI standpoint, which I felt pretty good, was I spent the whole day working with AI to work together. Cause like you said, what it would pump out wasn't exactly right, but it was amazing that, like I could have this meter say like, no, you can only have 10 to 15 bullet points. Cause now I guess everything's bullet points, and then you have to whatever. And like, it's one piece of the puzzle, but I do agree with you. I like what you're saying. I was just going to tell you how proud I was that I used AI for like 24 hours to like get through and build this thing that was like you said, it was like, how do I get over this? That's why I started this podcast is, I'm tired of, the design world has been very difficult since COVID. Most work
I'm
is
gonna stop using
contract
those
work.
words. I'm gonna make you stop using those words. You just said that resume building is hard and design world is very difficult. Stop using those words. I'm not kidding. Stop saying that. It's easy and it's more fun than ever. It's more fun than ever.
Well,
I'm telling you, the words that you speak things into existence because you're programming your brain to think that, to feel that, to act that way. Stop it. I'm
see,
giving you
I
free
feel
love
like
on the podcast, man. That's it. That's it.
I mean, obviously, you're right. You're doing things right. In my head, I just try to like read the landscape so I can overcome it. So it's not an excuse to me. It's a
You mean
like, how do you
overcome? This
figure
isn't cancer. Overcome it. What do you mean? You
that?
design things. That's the most fun job ever. Do you think somebody that's like in Uganda, that's like, like doing something like manual labor, that's making pennies on the dot, like what you do is so much fun, dude. Like, come on, it's the greatest thing ever. Just keep thinking about different things that you could do. Calling BS on all of it, Matt. This is gonna be the awakening for you. This is like,
Okay.
but like, oh, so then a follow up to that, where when I was talking about, we'll go back to like Gary and social media and trying to get people to do different things, where I absorbed all of that. Like, okay, this I'm gonna skate to where the puck is going. If I see where things are going, I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna go there hard. When I was at the last gig where I was a chief revenue officer, the AI stuff was born from just using it. Like you're just starting to use it right now. It was born from necessity though, right? And this is why if anybody's listening that's small business, right? And you're like up to 20 to maybe 30 million a year. I learned everything about AI in over the past 4 years because I didn't have the team, right? It was born from necessity. I had a small team of salespeople, one person in communications, one guy in marketing, and I just started trying to figure. I was like, okay, we just launched a fund, and we had to onboard people. We didn't have individuals that could do the onboarding, so we had to hack it together. And I was like, okay, there's frequently asked questions, but nobody's reading this. They want to call and they want to speak to a human being. So we used Synthesia to create avatars that would answer the frequently asked questions preemptively. And nobody knew that it was an avatar, but we were just getting, okay, watch this video. And it would teach them X, Y, and Z. And then they would get to the next step. You want to know how much money that saved us? Because I didn't have to use a human being to get on a call. We didn't have to waste time trying to figure out that problem. And we didn't answer the questions preemptively. So anybody that's concerned about AI or freaking out about it, it's like, I guess the lesson there is just do it, to like immerse yourself in it. And it's not hard. It's not difficult. It's fun. What you do is fun, dude. This is fun. This is really like come on.
I agree it's fun, but at the end of the day, you still have to learn how these tools work, which I am, and I'm really enjoying using it. I use it. I got rid of my search engine. I just use AI because it's amazing how much medical stuff. A friend of mine, like an internet friend, she's had like a cancer. She has terminal cancer, and she's gonna, it's a long one, like long term. But she had wrote that she's like, I went on Grok and I just put in my symptoms. She's like, and I got better feedback than I get normally going to the doctor. So I started using it for that. And again, it's not even it's not like, oh, don't go to a doctor, listen to the AI, but it's telling you so many things that leads you to that question to ask the doctor. And then the doctor comes back, and it's amazing how much it can really help you. Like, I've used it now for like a number of different just medical things, and it's like getting to the core of things that, like, when you just go to the doctor blindly and you see them for your 5 minutes where they're like, who are you? Oh yeah, do this, and then you leave. The Grok, it's like inside of you, and they're like, well, and then it's like referencing like, well, you talked about on your podcast that you're feeling that, and I was like, oh my God, I did do that. Like, that's the part that's amazing to me, is that when it takes pieces from a conversation from a few days ago, which is also scary, because the other part of me, the conspiratorial part, is like, are they building, a Matt Walker profile that, like,
Yes,
I mean,
they are.
yeah,
Get over it. They have, and guess what? They have been for 25 years.
yeah, I figured that, but this one,
So
yeah,
what? So what? Everybody, oh, I don't want to, like, I have family members that are like, I'm not on Facebook because I don't want the government to. I'm like, look, they already know.
yeah,
Like,
well, that I agree, yeah,
like you
yeah,
kidding me? Like, everybody's like, oh, privacy is an illusion.
it is.
Like, I have Google Nest in my house just to amplify the Wi-Fi throughout the house in different corners that it can't get to, and I don't have the voice activation system activated. Every once in a while, I worked for an international company and my boss was Belgian and he spoke English with a Belgian accent. There was something about his accent that he would turn on the Google Nest while I was talking to him. And it would be like, sorry, we didn't understand that. And I'm like, son of a B, that's not supposed to be listening to me.
Yeah.
Just responded to something. And it's everywhere in our homes. We have smart TVs. We have, all these different devices around us, all these different microphones. So what? If you're not murdering anybody or a pedophile, you have nothing to worry about. It's like
Well, I mean, I think you do, but to your point, it doesn't matter. Like, perfect example is we were talking. I was talking to my neighbor, and a guy that I used to work with pulled up on one of these electric bikes. I didn't know what they did. I was like, "Oh, is it a scooter?" He's like, "No, it just takes away the incline or the hard work, so you're always going at the pace." And I said, "Oh, wow, that's cool." Never heard of it again. We were just talking on the side of the road outside. And then my family and I went to go eat dinner. We came back. I hop on Facebook, and everything is ads for an electric bike. And I had never even heard of it. And I was like, what the hell? Like, the phone was in my pocket. You know what I mean? We were outside. But that's why when people are like, "Oh, I'm worried about my social security number," or you're ripping up your mail and throw it. I'm like, why would anyone dumpster dive in the middle of a junkyard to maybe get a bill that this is just insane. I'm like, if anybody wants any of your information, they could buy it right now. And I don't think they realize that. Why are all these things free? Because they're selling our information. So, nothing's free.
the bag. Yeah.
Yeah.
Calm down. Look, there are other things that you should be worrying about in this world. Design is fun.
I agree. Design is fun. The resume thing was challenging because it is, until you have the job, you want to, cross every T and dot every I, and you want to make sure you have those things. But I do agree, and I love design, and I love solving problems. But it's part of that culture of simplification. Like what you said, something where you said artisanal. And that's something I actually say is I equate myself more to kind of an old school Italian person that works with marble or something. And you build this beautiful thing and you're like, isn't this great? They're like, yeah, but I'm going to go buy the pressed one at Home Depot for like $20. And you're like, yeah, that probably makes sense. You don't need more than that.
Oh, but my point in saying that is there's always going to be an audience that's going to want that. Like that's not going to go away because it's human beings that are cutting the checks, right? And there are different human beings that like different things. For the people that I'm dealing with, it's small business owners, solopreneurs, and wannabe entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs. Okay, and what's key to success for them? Ease, speed, low cost, scalability, right? Like those things are valuable to them, but enterprise level businesses, they don't care about this. Like MasterCard is not going to worry about how quickly a design agency can turn around the design of a rebrand for MasterCard. MasterCard is going to conduct surveys. MasterCard is going to have focus groups. MasterCard is going to build financial models that are going to tell them what the ripple effect of changing their logo would be. MasterCard is going to have to figure out how much money is it going to be for them to rebrand everything, all of their print marketing material, all of the different training collateral, all of those different things. They need guys like you and gals like you, right? So it's just evening out the playing field. And that's why I brought up the Diamond Standard stuff is it's about filling those pockets for like small to mid-level businesses where I didn't use AI for everything. I just plugged the holes where I didn't have human beings to do that. And that's the kind of bell that I'm ringing. I'm like, look, if you were a freelancer and you used to plug those holes, like you better learn about AI, right? So that you can do that at scale and do that faster. Just my perspective.
No, you're right. And what I try to tell people too is I'll get a phone call like, oh, so-and-so just paid $1 million for this logo where, or when we were at ESPN, they would spend, I used to tell this story at Yale because they're like, well, Harvard spent $1 million on their website. We got to spend $1 million on your website. And I went, no, you don't. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, The reason they spend $1 million on their website is most of that cost goes to having 100 different meetings and doing 100 different studies, just so that when at the end of the day, if the logo or the website stinks, the person from Yale can, or the person from Harvard could say, well, I spent the money from my end. It's just a cover your ass thing. All that cost is just because this way I won't look bad. And so, like you said, it's not only that it doesn't take, it takes that long on purpose so that they can, protect themselves if it doesn't work. Because actually good work, you could get a great designer, and they could do things very quickly and very easily. And this was another thing I used to tell, because the Yale website was 25 years old when I got there. It was like this big. It
Yeah.
was so, oh God.
Yeah, my screen is like one of those curved, massive
Yeah.
ones, and then you go in one of those.
Yeah, you go in there. Yeah, it's like this. It's like 15 character paragraphs. And I looked at them and I said, guys, because they were so worried. What about testing? What about testing? And I said, guys, right now you're driving a 1978 Yugo down the highway. Your tires are falling off. You have no air conditioning. I'm like, nothing works. No radio, no muffler. I'm like, if I just showed up tomorrow and handed you a 2025 anything, you're going to be happy, right? And they started to laugh. I'm like, that's where you're at. I'm like, anything is better than what you have right now.
That would be interesting, though. It's funny that you mentioned that, because I was thinking this, from a marketing perspective, just because my background is direct marketing. I always think about the outlier will win, right? So if you look at certain brands that are killing it right now, like you look at ice cream logos, if you put like 15 different ice cream cartons in front of each other, they all look the same. The one that looks different, killing it. I forget the name of the brand, but they just changed the outside. They made it super simple looking, right? It's I don't even know what the style would be. You would know it better, but it just looks different. And I'm like, they're winning. So I was like, wow, wouldn't it be interesting if I changed the Torque app.ai website to look like what we just said? Like if I made my AI powered business to look analog and like narrow in 1990s, I think that's going to be a marketing tactic for a lot of businesses to like have throwback. Because when you mentioned the 1978 thing, I'm like, people love nostalgia. People love, if you look, there's a company that does, they take old Broncos and they restore them so much, like they trick them out and they're very expensive, but these things are gorgeous, man.
Beautiful. Yeah.
They look like the Broncos that we would see in Mayapack in 1986, right? But they've got these incredible sound systems and they've got a new engine inside. But they even have like the window rolly, like it's there, but if you just tap it, the window goes up and you tap, right? So like,
Yeah, yeah.
so it feels like it and it looks like it. So people are still gonna like nostalgic things, and maybe that'd be an angle for you, right? So this is why I say that right now is an exciting time, especially for design. Like you can position yourself as like the throwback designer, where you only design logos that look like it's in the early 80s, between 80 and 85. Like if you become that guy, and that's like the recommendation is like niche down, niche down, niche down, niche down, niche down. If you become the expert and the guy that can take a modern brand and give it a throwback look, I think that becomes a winner in the design world every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
There's another part of all this that people don't realize with accessibility. And this happened a lot when it was at the state of Connecticut, because, they're constantly being sued about accessibility. There's no,
Really?
it's just how basically there's a whole industry that they wait till someone writes a law
Mm-hmm.
and says, we need to be this, and they just sue you until you are. It's just kind of the way of the world. I mean, you know how it works. There's industries for everything. But when I was looking and they were showing us, they're like, oh, we need a AAA rated, accessible website. And that's why it's funny you said the old site is a AAA rated website, which you'll see in Europe and Canada. It's a white page with just black type and just black underline. And I was like, oh my God, like we're going.
We're going in reverse.
Yeah, I said, oh my God, I feel like we're back in 94, even, not even 98. And it is amazing with accessibility where you get to that point. And that's something where like AI would pump that out. And my point was always, well, let's have a conversation about maybe finding those holes where we could bring a little more to it or make it stand out a little more. And that's where I think, like you're saying, it's a good way to find places where the AI isn't ready for it yet or isn't as personal. I know you have a hard stop. You have an 11.
I hate
Yeah.
to do this, but let's come back. This is going to be a short call, and then I'll text you, and then we'll jump back because I'm really loving this.
All right. Good luck.
Is that cool? Thanks, man.
Yep.
Right.
Bye. Okay, we're back. Chris had his meeting, and everything's going well. I shaved a little bit. I don't know if anyone noticed. But Chris and I were just in the middle of some great conversation. What's that?
I see you, handsome devil.
Thank you. Chris and I.
Mayapack boys, we're all good looking.
It is funny that you're now my second Mayapack person. Actually, I was going to tell you just before I went back to Mayapack. Jimmy Borman was like, "Hey, you want to go out?" And I hung out with his brothers, and we had just done the podcast talking about his dad. The people there were so awesome. They all listened to the podcast. They were so excited. It was such a nice feeling.
Mayapack is the best place. We're very fortunate.
Yeah,
we grew up in an era, like a time and a place and like a moment where, I mean, I don't know about your experience, but like it was the best childhood ever, man.
Oh, absolutely.
It was
and
best.
we with Jeff Perlman was on, our whole podcast was just about Mayapack. I mean, it was kind of a love letter to that time. And one of the things I said is, I think it was the 80s, which was it says reconnecting. Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think it was that 80s time where it was just a great time. Like the 80s were great, and the 90s, which I even like better than the 80s. But I think living where we grew up in New York, all these city people that have all like city street smarts and that city kind of wise guy sense of humor, and now we're up in the woods. And now we're doing all this fun stuff. And like, I don't know, did you go to we had that keg party on an abandoned island in the middle of the lake. Like, that never, ever could happen ever again. It was just this perfect storm.
So you see all these guitars, two members of my band, they're a married couple in Chappaqua, and they just bought a summer house in Mayapack on the lake.
Wow.
And that's the first story I told them. I'm like, we partied on that island. We did and they're like, what? I'm like, long story, but like, you partied in the woods? I'm like, all the time. Then we did it. We did it at another area. We used to call it Lake Mighty Keg, where we would like drag a keg into the woods and drink in the woods. And we got found by the cops at like 4 a.m. They'd been searching to find out where we were because they heard.
I was with you.
Wait,
remember
really?
Bob Squared?
Yeah.
That was my cousin. Yeah, the whole thing. Yeah. Where they had 4 towns worth of cops converge.
Yes, and Gargano almost got us killed because he like held something up. I remember in my tent. I went to go reach for a flashlight. The cop stepped on my foot. I thought you were reaching for a gun. I'm like, we're in the woods drinking. What is that gun? What are you talking about?
I had to go to work at like 5 a.m. at the golf course, Putnam Golf Course. So I start packing the car, and I see all these flashlights coming down the hill. And I'm like, whoever's coming, I'm gonna beat you up. And he's like, and all of a sudden there's a gun to my face, and he's like, tell your friend to drop the weapon. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he had one of those little yellow plastic BB guns, and his hands are shaking. And I was like, what the hell are you doing?
Oh my God. I forgot that you were there with us.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
My whole thing was I had never met that cousin before. And then he was from Rhode Island, and I didn't even know his name, and they called him Bob Square. It was a great time. Great story. Oh, yeah.
God, dude.
Yeah. Great time.
So for anybody listening, back, we would go deep into the woods to cause all sorts of shenanigans. It was a lot of fun, dude. It is funny, though. It's like there's a country song. I forget the name of it. It might be like, I think it's called like Fireflies or something like that, where one of the lyrics, he talks about like, if heaven was an hour, it would be twilight, and if it was a date, it'd be like 1986. And then like part of the lyric is like basically like life was so simple then, and then he's like, and everyone I loved was still alive. And that line, I'm like, oh my God, it's like hunting for fireflies on a summer night, barefoot in the grass, like, and gosh, yeah, we were lucky to grow up where we grew up.
We had a great neighborhood where, because yours, did you have that neighborhood feel? Because you were kind of in between a couple of neighborhoods. Did you have that? Like we had, every street was its own like group of kids.
Yeah,
There was Emerald Lane and
but I used to like go like, so I also lived very close to my hey, buddy woke up there.
that looks like a cat.
Shut up! Don't say my dog looks like. I still like. I could walk to Len Saffone's house at the top of the hill.
Yeah.
I could ride my bike to Singlak's house. I could ride my bike to like Mike Fennessy and Mike Pace's house. I could, we could get anywhere we wanted to go on our bicycles. Like I used to ride my bike to Merrill Turnbull's house. I used to go anybody that I wanted to hang out with. It was right there. But yeah, the block behind me was like Matt and Brian Gain, Teddy Young, Rich Cassiato, who was older. You might not even remember him, but he was like so much older that I remember the first time I met the guy, he was on his bike and then he stood up on his bike, just stood on the seat with his arms like this coming down Brookside. And I was like, that's the coolest human being I've ever seen in my entire life. That's amazing. So yeah, John Walton, I could throw a rock and hit John's house.
Yeah.
We used to call him John.
Yeah. And that was his parents' name for him.
Maria Lisa, his sister, I played in a band with her. She's a singer. Yeah. She sings. So yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I see them. I still see them all the time. And we were talking about that. It was a great time. I remember the other thing I was saying, I said this in the other podcast, is the amount of places you could play ice hockey, pick up ice hockey.
Dude, I had a pond on my property.
Yeah. Oh, I used to love that pond. Yeah. That was so great.
Like,
that was great.
People are like, did you have a good childhood? I'm like, yeah, Mayapack was a blue collar town, blah, blah, blah. And then I say I had a pond on my property. They're like, oh, fancy. There was like a drainage thing that like, it wasn't that. It was, but yeah, I mean, it would freeze over. And my brother, this is great. My brother's friends would call me Zamboni because that was the only way that they would let me play hockey with them is if I would clean the ice. So we would shovel the ice. I'd get a water bucket. I'd splash water on the ice, and then we'd get like a squeegee, like push it on the ice to make it better so that we could skate on it. It was great, dude. It was the best thing ever.
We had the tea kettle lake ice hockey was legit. I remember there was like multiple rinks on one little ice. Yeah, that was a legitimate one. Then we had the pond. I don't know if you know, down sort of by Fennessy, by the Belushis, there was a pond down there. That was a good one.
Really?
It was off a watermelon.
Off a watermelon? Now you're blowing my mind. It's funny.
Yeah.
Like the Belushis. That was a great Mayapack family. Legendary.
Yeah, great family. Actually, we were talking about that. Like 100 people living in this tiny little house. It was like, a clown car. It was like coming out.
There were like 8 kids, and it's like the house had 3 windows in the front. Yeah. Like, where did you fit?
And then later, somebody said they bought land and they all built houses on it. And I'm like, well, they finally got some space.
Yeah, great family though. Like really, good. They were my wrestling coaches. They were my math teachers. They were. Although I remember. In math class in middle school, one of the Bellucci brothers, who was my math teacher, I did something which was stupid, like, silly, like, sit in the back, Chris, calm down. And he did this thing that his dad used to do to him where he'd squeeze the side of my head and then drag his hand up to the top of your head. And it hurt so much. Like it was like a punishment. But can you imagine like a teacher grabbing a kid's head and doing that thing now? Yeah. It would have been a lawsuit. It would have been I deserved it,
No, in 3rd grade there was Sarah Coakley, and we were so close. We were like brother and sister, and we just got into like a scuffle because that's what we would do. It was just like, but I didn't think of it because it was Sarah Coakley. She was like my sister, and we were just whatever. Yeah. And I remember the teacher just dragging me out of the gym by my hair. And they're like, well, you hit a girl. And I was like, oh. It was a life lesson. I never did it again.
Yeah. Mayapack was good for life lessons. That's
yeah. But getting back to the we were talking about so many great things, and we were just talking before we turned the podcast on. We were just talking about opportunities and making the best of opportunities. I'm trying to remember what we talked about right before we turned it on. You wanted to
I
speak on.
got it. I got it. So we were talking about how great it is that you're doing this podcast and your work in design and at ESPN and all that fun stuff. And, whether haters who will see a podcast, this podcast, or like my YouTube channel or my TikTok, or, the things that we post about that are outside of just like our kids and, we're at a baseball game or whatever, or we're at a show and that's cool. There's always going to be haters, but I feel that the haters can go fly a kite. I won't say what I was saying before we hit record. But the reason why I get so upset by people hating on this type of content generation and this type of interaction is I believe this is our IP, right? So it is something that you own as your own intellectual property, not because of just the content, but because of all the things that you're learning. So we were talking about microphones and video and lighting and all that stuff, and you can apply that to myriad different things in different job scenarios, and to be able to continuously learn the craft about creating this type of content and then exposing yourself to different people that you interview, that you're learning from, that Jeff Perlman and I are two very different people, right? From the same town, but two very different people doing very different things, right? So you're continuously learning. So you're building gray matter, right? Like there's neuroplasticity, right? Like you're rewiring your own brain because you're exposing yourself to these different things. And I think it's the best thing ever. And it's yours, right? Like the way I view it is, for me, it's my legacy, right? So, and actually I have a really good example of that, where my daughters are now 17 and 14, which is so bizarre to say that. But my little one, about 2 years ago, for the first time, actually sat through and watched my TEDx talk. And I think she was gobsmacked by it because she was featured in the TEDx talk about her seizures and how I thought she was dead and I thought she was dying in my arms and all of this stuff. And it was the first real feedback loop that I got from like the lesson of knowing that everything that you put out there will most likely live in perpetuity, right? Like, or in our concept of perpetuity, like a generation, like people will be able to search for Matt Walker and Chris Dessi, and they might stumble upon this podcast and they're like, that's so weird. Things were so weird in 2025 and now it's 2035 or whatever. But understanding that and then knowing that that's part of your legacy and part of what you're building, that your children will know about you and your children's children will know about you, I think that's the most exciting thing. Because like when I got that feedback loop from my little one who was welling up watching my TEDx talk, I'm like, oh, I did it right. I challenged myself to do something different and spoke about vulnerability instead of talking about Facebook and Twitter. And, thank God I did that, So the haters can go fly a kite.
Well, there's, at the end of the day, the simplest terms, we are problem solvers, right? What are we trying to do? We're trying to solve a problem. And to me, these conversations, and they have been with 4 very different people from different walks of life. What it does, and I had a mentor back in the day, this guy, Chris Kammerer, and he taught me so much. And he said, everything you're doing, you're creating a mental file cabinet. He goes, everyone thinks that there's just this magic keyboard. We used to do a lot of work for Kraft at the time. He goes, they think there's this magic button on your keyboard that solves everything and it's going to be done in 2 seconds. He goes, but every time you learn something or every time you come up against something that you don't know how to do, you solve it. He goes, that goes into the mental file cabinet. He goes, and then before you know it, that's your value. Your value is that in a pinch, at 5 o'clock at night where this has got to get out the door, you get hit with something really, really difficult. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, this is how we could do this, we could do that. He goes, and that becomes your experiences and that becomes what gives you your expertise. So if you're constantly problem solving, because even that, like solve problems visually sometimes, but most of my work is strategic. Yours is strategic. It's from these conversations. It's from, like you said, also is making yourself uncomfortable. Because like for me, even the AI stuff was difficult for me because I see text and my brain just shuts off. I'm pretty sure now I have like ADD. But now that I'm learning these things and I'm making myself uncomfortable, you just take two or three things, and now all of a sudden it kind of collects and it turns into like an avalanche of content and ideas and thoughts. And that was the point of the podcast, was learning more, getting out there and talking to people and brainstorming. Because I also think being around people and talking just keeps those juices flowing. You were talking about exercise. Well, this is like exercising your brain too.
Yeah. And you're evolving too. I mean, if you think about a guy like Jeff Pearlman, 30 years ago, a guy like Jeff didn't have to learn anything other than writing.
Yeah.
Full stop, right? But this is a guy that's like he built a community on TikTok, and by virtue of building the community on TikTok, got offered to create a podcast, and now he's got like, it's such a different world where you can become your own PR person, you can become your own marketer, you can become your own salesperson, and just by virtue of the content that you're creating. And I think, I see opportunity. I see, I get very excited about it. I'm, probably have ADD as well, but it's one of those things where, it does keep you very interested and engaged. But I love the analogy of like the mental file cabinet from your mentor. I think that you're lucky to have a smart person mentoring you in your life. That's very cool.
Well, it's funny. I only had him for about a year, and I still, most of my business-based concepts come from like that year. It was like a learning tree. It was just, he was such a smart guy. I would reach in every once in a while. I'd check in with him, and I swear he's just always teaching. Actually, Joe Bozak I had on the last podcast. He's a great logo designer, and I actually got inspired to do it reading this magazine article with him. And one day I just called him out of the blue, back when you could just call people out of the blue, early internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's another one. Every conversation I have with him, it's a learning tree, and you think you know him, and then, it's like you need a notepad and you just need to jot it down. You're like, God, I'm just always learning from this person. They're just so smart.
Well, it's also my Uncle Bill, who was a mentor of mine. I remember I was out on a golf course in Austin, Texas with him, and I was in my mid-20s, and I was just grilling him. I was just asking questions about his career. He was very successful, traveled the world 5 times over, and he was always doing like the coolest thing. He was always doing like skating to where the puck was going and all that stuff. And I remember by the end of the 18 holes, I said the same. I was like, my God, you are so smart. And he stopped me and he's like, nah, I just been around for a long time.
Well, it's true, right?
It was very telling though, because like he had all these experiences and he had extracted these nuggets from it, but he'd been around for a long time. But I also think that there's a difference between being around for a long time, keeping your eyes and ears open and learning from what's going on around you. And we've talked about this before too, Matt, where the things that we're doing on a daily basis are building upon each other. And I think the people that are in the most sort of a risk area in their jobs and their lives are people that have been doing the same job over and over for 20 years, where they haven't been evolving and haven't been learning and haven't been, exposing themselves to these different things.
So I used to, I coached youth football for 15 years, and, you could say it's youth and, but it's football. Like, you're watching film, you're learning, you're going, and you're going all these coaches clinics with like Nick Saban and all these things, like you're learning, right? But when I used to teach the kids is everyone's about the same, right? Every team, you have 2 or 3 really good players, and then, whatever. I go, well, one team, everybody just, pushed it a little extra on the runs. And then one team, the night before the game, I got a good night's sleep. One team, and I ate a good meal before the game, so I made sure I had plenty of this. During practice, I stayed hydrated, blah, blah, blah. Oh, and then, this is a good culture where the top kids are pushing the lesser kids to kind of get there. I go, that's the difference. This is the difference between good and great. All the
Yeah.
little things. I pushed a little harder in the runs. I stayed after and did some reps. I asked a few questions. I've carried that. And I used to always teach them and say, look at the coaches here. I'm like, they're all successful because you could sit and complain, you could sit and talk, or you could just sit and not grow.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
I love it.
Is just want to get a little bit better. And that's the distance is like you get 30 or 40 of those tiny little things.
Yeah.
And I'm always wondering, what are those little things? So like we were saying, I start walking, you look at your diet, you look at those things, and it does mentally help you. And then I do believe, and I think you're a perfect example of this. I think people that have a very good mental outlook and are excited and they're grateful for the things they have in their life, I think good things happen to those people. I don't think it's a coincidence.
I agree.
I can't explain it. I don't know why it works that way, but it doesn't matter why it works. I just know it works.
Yeah.
So I always am pushing to be like that. And I'm always trying to look at the world and say, okay, I'm doing this, which is great, but I got to do these little more things. And I'm always looking to find those little extra steps and connect all those pieces. Like this conversation with AI, but also, the things we've talked about, like you were talking about the gym stuff and how you stop going. Those do matter because you forget about them.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, oh, got to reset. I got to do the things that I know help me.
I don't think we were recording. I'll reiterate the story. So in June of last year, I was let go along with a couple of other C-suite executives at a startup that I had dedicated 3 years to. And I was concerned about paying my mortgage, like everybody else. And I stopped working out for about a month because I was working 15-hour days, and I was looking at my wife. I'm like, I just need income. I got to get consulting gigs. I got to get money in the door. And I didn't realize why I was probably depressed, right? Like, oh God, you have that moment of like, what's going, I got to pull myself up by my bootstraps. And I realized by not working out for like a month, I'd almost forgotten the mental benefit of getting up and going to the gym and being around people and being social and having people that push you and having that network and laughing a few times in the morning, maybe hurting a little bit in the morning, sweating a little bit in the morning, and not getting that sort of endorphin and dopamine mental benefit was profound for me. Profound. Because now that I'm back in the gym and doing all that stuff again, I'm like, wow, I will never extract that from my life ever again. And like you said, it's those little baby steps. And once you start having those foundational elements in your life again, you can really accomplish great things. But on the flip side, like we were both talking about, sometimes you can do all the right things and things still go wrong. So that's like a little, I got to tell that to my girls tonight.
Well, that's why looking for those little things make the difference, or the reset. Like, yeah. I'm doing all the right things. Did I miss anything? Just to make sure. You said something which I think is very important, especially as we live in this remote culture. I have been working primarily remote since 2014. And there's so many great things about doing that, and it's productive. I mean, the fact that like when you're on a conference call that doesn't matter and I can like throw in the laundry or fold my laundry is one of those greatest things in the world. Yeah.
You're not paying attention, but you can have your earbuds in and be like, oh, I'm gonna throw that load.
I can listen and empty the dishwasher. I mean, it's possible. But I will say, when I went to ESPN, I had the option of working there or working from home. And I went in 3 or 4 days a week. And that's something you said, I think, which is important, is making sure you're talking to people, because those water cooler conversations, oh my gosh, I can't explain how nourishing they are.
Yeah.
Hey, did you see the game? Hey, what'd you like? Those interactions, honestly, really gave me a lot of juice. And you forget that, like, because it's, like I said, it's great to do your laundry, but you're not talking to anyone. You're not challenging yourself. You're not. And I believe a lot of the world is energy, just feeling that energy and feeling those little jokes. And, and going back to a place I hadn't been in 10 years, I picked up where I left off. Andrew Feldman he's the main editor for Combat Sports and stuff like that. And we picked up on our jokes and laughs every day. And, and then a lot of the same people, it was like the same conversations, but there's an energy that comes from human interaction. I think just like exercise, like try to get out and talk to people. And because I'm trying to do that more. Like I joined this community thing here and I'm looking to see if the church has more stuff, but it is important to exercise your social batteries too, I would say. Do you think that's about, because you're a very social guy?
Oh my gosh. I am a very social guy, but when things go sideways, I have a tendency to like push away and I get like this. I get like, just leave me alone. I'm going to work. I'm just going to
Yeah.
work. I get tunnel vision. So while, I'm kind of both ends of that spectrum, but we're tribal animals. We're tribal mammals. Like we need human contact. We need affection. We need a hug. You ever go for a while without a hug and then get one? Oh my God, dude. Like,
I hug a lot.
yeah.
I'm a big hugger. Like my kids could leave, I'll give them a big hug and they'll go in and come back like, oh, I forgot like my phone. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Come on in, one more. So, but I think a hug is, I think the world runs on hugs. I think hugs are really important. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it.
Contact is critical. But yeah, extracting yourself from that and then getting back into it is hugely important. And then interacting with people like yourself that have the same context, right? Like being able to talk about Mayapack and know the roads and the, what it smelled like on the, when you were running out from Kingsridge Pool and the ice cream would pull in and you'd hear the bell and everybody would run out and try and go in the parking lot and you had to like tiptoe in the parking lot because you were barefoot and then you had to like go up and order your ice cream and God, like you close your eyes and you know exactly what that was like. But having similar context with other human beings is important too.
From that pool, I will always remember the taste of a Three Musketeer bar with a little chlorine on it from my lips because it was just, you went up to the window and you got it. And like the combination of those two tastes, I will always remember.
It's crazy. Dude, I joke around. I'm like, I don't even know if I should say this on the podcast. I don't know if I'm not even going to, I don't know if I should say this. We're talking about, I remember it's because of Kingsridge Pool why I am attracted to certain types of women, because I remember very vividly there was a group of moms that would
oh no, this is gonna
that would wear these great bikinis and smoke like these long Virginia.
They were all smoking
cigarette. Yeah. They're all smoking with long red nails, and I just remember being like, it's like embedded in my psyche.
Oh my God! Did you ever see Stranger Things?
Yes. Yeah.
Did you see this season with the lifeguard?
No, I didn't. I don't.
Oh my God! It's Kingsridge Pool. Yeah. All the moms are. First of all, every lifeguard at the pool in the 80s had platinum dyed blonde hair, right?
Dude, yeah.
Feathered, and they were all smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
And the lifeguard in there, it's so funny. There's this one funny line. My sister and I die laughing because it sounds like they'd say at Kingsridge Pool is one chubby kid's running at the pool and they're like, "Hey, no running, you fat lard."
Dude, and nobody got upset. Like
nobody got upset. Oh, he was running and he's a little heavy.
A little chunky. Yeah. It's so funny. So my God.
I could still feel the hot, whatever the gravel, whatever the texture of the concrete was. Walking on the hot, you could feel the little stones and walking up there to get to it's
the best. Know what I do remember? This you're either gonna want to swing at me or you're gonna laugh your butt off. I remember in kindergarten, this is so stupid. I remember milk was 10 cents. Like we had to bring 10 cents for our milk. And I remember once, you might not even remember this.
Probably not.
You had your dime in your ear.
Yes. I used to do that a lot.
Why would you do that?
I don't know.
I remember like sitting next to you, be like, You have money in your ear.
Yeah. I don't. So I had an Audi belly button, and my mom heard this thing that if you put like a quarter or a dime on the belly button, it would go in.
What?
So they would tape like a coin to my belly button, and then we would go to. Remember that supermarket where the four brothers are?
You're giving me too much funny information at the same time. Dude, come on. With a tape of dime to your belly.
Yeah. They would always, so I would play with it. I'd put it in my ear. And I always had a dime, like, because it was taped to my belly button.
Oh my God. I can't believe this. That's too. Look, my buddy's laughing. He doesn't look like a cat there. Look, dude. Oh my God.
Remember there where the Four Brothers was a supermarket.
Yeah.
And we would go there, and that's where the kids would be like, yeah, and the kids would be like, come on, let's get that dime out of your belly button. There, we'd get the machine with the candy. It was so funny.
What a uniquely it's so stupid. It's so stupid. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And then,
so funny.
I remember you. It's so fun. It's like you stand out in my memory of kindergarten. And Kara Swanson, whatever happened to Kara Swanson?
Oh, I don't know. It's what he said. Everyone was in love with her.
You remember?
Oh yeah.
We got to find her.
Even that name sounds like a movie character that everybody was
like. What a pretty name. Yeah. Kara Swanson, if you're out there, call us.
It's funny. I remember Mrs. Plager was her name, was our teacher, right?
It was the best, dude.
That was my only year in public school ever.
Yeah, then you went straight into St. John's, right?
Yeah.
That's
I have a mark. Plager.
What happened? Go.
I have a mark right here, if you can see it. We were in class in kindergarten, and my mom didn't drive. She gets a phone call one day. Mrs. Walker, your son's been hit by a truck. And she's panicking, and she gets the car. She comes out. Scott Wunderlich just hit me with a wooden truck in my head, which I have a mark from to this day.
Dude, Wunderlich. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he is. I just saw him on Facebook the other day. He's a nice kid.
Dude, know what happened a couple of times? Like, it's so funny how this happened. Well, firstly, I was going to tell a Scott Wunderlich story, and then you just mentioned him, which is great. It's the first time I ever got in trouble. Was he was sitting in front of me in kindergarten, and I was like blowing on his. I was like blowing, and he got mad at me. Like turns around, like hits me, and Mrs. Plager's like, "Scott, stop it!" And he's like, "He was blowing on the back of my head." I'm like, and I remember I was breathing, and then she just believed me, and I was like, "Dodge that bullet! I got away with that one. That was great." But it's funny. It's like. When I was in my 20s and like living with Mike Pace and I were another Mayapack guy for those. Mike Pace and Anthony Pace and I all lived together on the Upper East Side.
Oh, nice.
One night after work, I'm standing on the corner of 86th Street. I'm just walking home, right? Like I'm just standing there, and I turn to my left, and there's Scott Wunderlich. I'm like, holy shit, Wunderlich, that's so great. Yeah, it might be the last time I actually saw him in person. Yeah,
the city's funny because it's not very big, and every once in a blue moon you just run across someone, and it's like, oh my God, I'm seeing you in the city. It was just such a big moment,
dude. It's a thing with my college friends that they are shocked that almost anywhere I go with my college group of friends, I will encounter someone from Mayapack, and I have a great story for that. So my buddy Kyle from college grew up in Pennsylvania, and he always would say that. He's like, anywhere we go, there's like we'll be in some random city, and you hear Dessie, and it's like ridiculous. So we're in my car driving to Queens. I was working on my master's degree at NYU, so I was living in Queens. My brother was working on his juris degree to become a lawyer at St. John's. He had the apartment in Queens. We're roommates in Queens. So we're going down to Queens from Mayapack, and because my college buddy's just helping me move, right? And we're going into Midtown, and this guy Kyle's going to be my roommate once I hit Manhattan, right? So that's why he's helping me, right? Like we're all like moving in together, like hanging out. Wait, was he going to be my roommate? He was just helping me. So, but we're talking about it. Like literally, this is the topic of conversation. Wow, everywhere we go, we run into somebody from Mayapack. Isn't that crazy? We're at the toll booth. Going over the Whitestone Bridge. Matt, I kid you not. I turn to pay the toll and I go, didn't you go to Mayapack High School? And he's like, yeah, why? And my buddy Kyle's like, stop it. And I'm like, oh my God. Craziest moment ever. I was like, yeah, Mayapack is ever, for a tiny little town,
Yeah.
we've had some global impact, man. Global impact.
It is. It's funny. It happens a lot. And, you know, I talk to Mike O'Brien quite a bit, and we talk about like
Hey.
there's something about this town, and you just run into people, or it's a funny,
Well, know what it is too?
funny world.
I think it's, look, we were all raised well, right? Like it was like salt of the earth. It's a blue collar town. Like the families were great. Like it has its, you know, flaws, but as does everything. But I also think people encounter people they knew from their town, but they might not call out their name and interact with them. And
Yeah.
I feel like when I would see people from Mayapack, I would react. I'd be like, wait, didn't you go to Mayapack High School?
Yeah.
It would like flash in my head that I knew them. I just feel like we were all like a close knit town. Like I forget his name. There's a kid from Kennedy that spotted me at an airport once, and he's sitting there with his family about to get on a flight, and he's like, Dessie, and I'm like, oh my God, and I had to like look. I didn't really recognize him at first, and I'm like, oh my God. But the fact that we do that with each other, I think, speaks volumes about the town, right? Like speaks volumes about the way we were raised. Like people, you know, you might see somebody from your hometown, you might like ignore them and be like, whatever. So that's
the other funny thing was like, I'll reference it and they're like, hey, walk. And people are like, what's walk? I go, oh, that's my name. Since when? I'm like, that was always my name.
Yeah, that's
hey, walk.
That's the deal. That's the deal. Names are great. So seeing John Walton, because I was playing in the band with, you know, Maria Lisa, you know, I'm like, John, and he's like, oh yeah, I guess they don't call you John anymore. You know, like whatever.
No, it's funny you say it. Most people don't even know that, but that was the kindergarten thing, I think, and that's because I still think of him as John too. Yeah,
great memories, man. Good families. Well, look.
So I want to before I let you go, you brought up something I think is important that I want to end on. This is you have YouTube. It sounds like you have YouTube videos for free where you can learn to use the AI, because for me, it's actually kind of a little scary that you open it up and there's just one search box. And I was like, what do I do with this? Yeah. And even now I just say like, hey, rewrite this. And I put quote, and I cut it in. I'm very interested in that. So can you talk more about that, about these videos? Because even then, I'm still shocked. Like, oh my God, they remember me. Because I know you had mentioned you had a premium Chat GPT. I use Grok. I use Chat GPT for text, which it tends to write better in my mind anyway.
Yeah.
But does everything remember you, whether you pay or not? How does all that work?
So it does remember certain things, but if you pay and then create your own GPT, that's a game changer. So what I would recommend is when you do go to ChatGPT is on the, you know, I'm going to do a tutorial. I'll do like a Loom video because I know I'm going to get it wrong, but it's not complicated. Where it says like explore other GPTs, and then you can create your own. So at Torque, we do it for our clients. Like we'll create our client's own GPT, and that GPT can then be turned into a chatbot that can be placed on their website. So, so there's all sorts of fun things that you could do. But the step one of creating your own GPT is powerful because, like, I've done a lot of writing in my career because I knew the power of writing, right? So I wasn't a great writer. I think I became an okay writer. And I took everything I've written, taken my blogs, taken my books, taken any transcripts that I'm proud of, uploaded to the GPT. I put my YouTube videos, I put my TV appearances, I put my keynotes on there. So it starts to learn about you. And I will ask it to write certain things in Chris Dessi's voice, and it gets better the more that you coach it. Then it will always remember you in the GPT, right? So you can create GPTs about certain things where you can just upload your PowerPoints and say, create a PowerPoint that is similar to my previous PowerPoints, because you might have a cadence and a style that you like. But for me, that's the biggest and most profound game changer for people going beyond just interacting with text, where it gets to know you and will hold on to that information and will create content based on your knowledge base. Gets a little creepy, gets a little bit like it's kind of, I mean, look, I've created a ton of content in the past 15 years. We've been working for what, like 27 years of our careers. And probably the past 15, I've generated an exorbitant amount of content that's out there. So it has a lot to learn from, and it's pretty easy for me to say, I'll ask it to write an outline for a webinar in my voice, and it nails it. And I'm like, whoa, that's weird. And it's because it's watched my other webinars, and I've given it transcripts of other videos. So creating a GPT about you or your business, I think, is the biggest first step game changer. And I mentioned earlier that I'm speaking to this group of chambers in from Westchester. That's the first thing I'm teaching. Like, I'm going to walk them through creating a GPT, because I think if you do nothing else, that becomes really powerful. I mean, the deep research stuff is excellent if you're going to be in front of people that you need to share statistics. I think some of the features are not worth the money. I'm even forgetting the feature where it like crawls the internet and looks for you. I paid like $200 upgrade for it. I'm like, this is awful. Like, it was not something that I found to be impactful, where it was like a mediocre version of something that I could have done myself, or an intern could have done, where it like crawls the internet and it basically like goes to Google and searches the keyword for you, and then looks for that content. I feel like I'm in it. I want to like tell people how to create the GPT step by step. So it's super simple. So, all right, I got this. So pay attention. Upper left-hand corner where it says, it's just the sidebar. If you click on the sidebar, and then you click on Explore GPTs, if you look at your headshot, your account on the upper right-hand corner, there's a plus, and it says Create. That's it. You click Create, you name the GPT, then you upload your content, you've created a GPT.
So you have Chat GPT, which I was using. I started using Grok just because, like I said, the one woman, she was having medical issues and she got great results from it. So I started using it, and I've found those things, and I feel like Grok is remembering me. Are they all kind of like that, and they just have different names, or is Chat GPT more specific with the GPT, which I'm not sure what that means, but does that make it different? Or
I did a deep dive on ChatGPT only because I wrote the book, like, now almost 2 years ago, because I was using just that. So
yeah,
I'm not really certain how those different models work, but if you create a GPT, it does remember you. Grok has been really incredible for development parameters. So I actually started developing apps. I'm not a coder. And I went to Grok and I told Grok what I wanted, and I asked it to write directives for software engineers. I then took those directives based on what I wanted to create. And what I wanted to create, it was for a client that sold like aromatherapy products. And so this is where it could be powerful. This might take a minute. We have time. I got 10 minutes. Okay. So this is the thought process. And it's a good example of AI and still needing to have human beings associated with it. So I had a client that did aromatherapy products. And when I asked them who they sold to, like who their client was, they're like, we think it's, and I went, eh. And they're like, what? They're like, we think it. And I was like, don't think, no. So I used a company called Delve AI to look at their Google Analytics. And what Delve would do, and still does, is spits out an avatar. but a very specific avatar. So it names the avatar. So it's like, it might be like Angela Walker is 42 years old, lives in Connecticut, works at a hospital, makes X amount of dollars, loves spending money on jewelry, self-care, and cosmetics. So now you know, but they're not just making it. Delve AI doesn't just make it up out of thin air. It's extracting the data from Google Analytics. So the data that Google has, and then it's giving you that. So that's step one. So I was like, okay, this is who you sell to. And they were like, wow, that's really cool. And I said, show me your email list. And I looked at the email list and I said, how are you communicating with that list? And they were like, we send email blasts once a month. And I go, firstly, stop calling it a blast because that sounds like it's spam, right? Like, don't refer to it as sending an email blast. So there are two different types of emails that marketers can use. It's like a newsletter, just informative once a month. And then there's iterative email that interacts with your customer base based on how they interact with your brand. And what I mean by that was I then did an analysis of their email list based on what they had purchased on the e-commerce store, and we segmented them. And once we segmented them and mapped the segments to the avatar, I was able to now create ads using lookalike audiences on Facebook saying, okay, I'm going to find this avatar, but the avatar's mirror image. And I'm going to market to them in a different way than I would market to the other avatar that only spent $10. But the one that spent $3,000 is going to have a different marketing message, a different landing page, and a different offer because their lifetime value was more, because their individual everything was more. So that was like the first couple of steps that I took. And they're like, wow, this is really exciting. I'm like, yeah, it's marketing, right? It's direct marketing. But so what I mean by the interaction between human beings and AI is I wouldn't have been able to do this had I not had a master's degree in direct marketing and had not been working in tech for nearly 30 years.
Yeah.
Done all these different marketing things. You have to be able to understand how to use the technology. So Delve AI gave me the avatar. I then segmented it and used those segments in order to leverage other AI and other technology to create consistent iterative emails. I went to ChatGPT, uploaded the segments and said, create a 10 email flow for me. Creates the 10 email flow based on the avatar that I uploaded to the client's GPT, right? So now it's learning about the client. I then feed it the avatars and I say, we need to talk to Susie, who spent more than $3,000 with us, who likes these 5 things. So ChatGPT goes, okay, it likes these things. I got it. That's how I'm going to learn how to write the emails. We're going to have different vernacular. We're going to refer to different products on the website because we know they have deeper pockets. So we're going to upsell them more. And we're going to communicate differently to the mid-level, the other level, the other level. Puts that out. Now, manually, you got to go in, you got to put the emails in, you got to make sure that the design looks nice and you do all those different things. And they were like, wow, this is really incredible. And I said, well, let's figure this out. We need to bundle, right? So you can't just have the product offering. You want to bundle the different products. God bless Adrian Dessi, my father. He taught me about that because dad was director of database and direct marketing for Avon. And my dad was the first person to bundle products in their catalog marketing. So I knew that bundles worked for many, many years. It's human nature. And I said, okay, do you bundle your products? They're like, no. And I said, okay, let's look at all the aromatherapy products. We said, there's different bundles. Like there's different products that that were continuously buying together. So I'm like, okay, let's create offers based on those bundles. We're going to create bundles, but what are the bundles? All right, the bundles are, we're going to make the bundles based off of how people spa. Like, how do they relax? How do they unwind? Do they like to, rest their brain? Do they like to rest their body? Do they like to be in a bath? Do they like to go for a run? Like, people unwind in different ways. So I was like, wow, it'd be really cool if we could ask people up front how they like to unwind, how they like to spa, so they will self-segment once they hit the site instead of us segmenting on the back end. So I was like, shoot, I need a developer. And then I was like, no, I don't. I wrote the parameters that I wanted to create an app for in Grok, took the parameters, put it into Perplexity. Perplexity then created the actual app, the code. It created a first iteration. It didn't work. I said, second iteration, didn't work. I said, all I need is short code for a Shopify powered e-commerce site. And it was like, got it. Like, we were just having this conversation, right? Back and forth with Perplexity. It gives me the code. I input the code. Now we have an app. So when they hit the website, it says, how do you spa? You click on a couple of questions, like 3 or 4 questions, and then it goes, you are, and we label them before they even know. We just tell them, you are a X. And then they go, wow. And then they immediately just are drawn to those bundles and those products, right? That is marketing and leveraging AI at a very, very high level, right? And that's where it becomes magic, where you're just like, oh my gosh, this is so much more than asking ChatGPT to write a blog post, right? And that's where it becomes really fun, and that's where it's, bespoke and, custom to an individual client. But that's also where guys like you and I can absolutely eviscerate our competition because of our experience, our background, the knowledge, right? The file cabinet that your mentor was talking about. So you could take all your knowledge and then scale it just by using different AI tools.
So we're getting into the end here. I've got a 1 o'clock too, but I will say, I would love to dive into that more. The idea of making apps with AI that's a huge thing for me to be able to do. So, let's get together later on and talk about that. But that just opens my brain.
We'll absolutely do it, and like we should do it together. And if anybody listening to this, just go to my YouTube channel, because the earlier meeting where I had to bounce off, like, I am putting my foot on the gas for my YouTube channel, because the reaction that it's getting when I do walkthroughs like that for people, they're just like, oh, thank you. That's tactical. Right?
And what is your YouTube channel?
It's
just like YouTube Chris Dessi
/ Christopher Dessi. Yeah.
Okay, Christopher Dessi.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we've got to end this. This was amazing.
So
I usually say nice things, but I'm actually going to go onto your YouTubes and listen to them, because that's amazing.
I'm uploading a video in like 20 minutes. So like, you're going to get a good one where I talk about how to launch an AI powered agency as a side hustle, using what I talked about earlier, a white label agency service, and then how to go about executing that so that people can have a real scalable, simple side hustle by launching their own agency.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing. All right. We both got to go. Chris, this was amazing as always.
You're the best. I love you, dude.
Talk about, I love you too. And all right. Well, thank you for this. This was fantastic. Thanks again, Chris Dessi. Okay. Bye.